Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Taylor Talks Trades. This week I've got a very special guest, Rob Muldoon from the MYH Podcast. He's travelled all the way up to Scotland today to be with us, so really looking forward to getting into this one. Rob, welcome to Taylor Talks Trades.
Thanks for having us.
How did you get into the trades?
So I got into the trades back in the good old days of the beginning of the 2000s, left school in the year 2000, and school wasn't for me, never clicked with me, it wasn't part of what I enjoyed doing, but I did enjoy the physical side of things, like so going doing the woodworking side of things and everything like that. And if I'm brutally honest with you, my uncle over in Ireland was paying a bricklayer a fortune to build him this extension on his house over there, and I thought, maybe I could try that. And it sort of built from there, and I started working for like a small local domestic builder near me in Manchester. And then I ended up getting a full apprenticeship with a big brickwork contractor. And it grew from there, and I worked for that contractor for the best part of 20 years on and off. I never really left. I was always there, and then I'd go and fill a bit of time with my own stuff, and then I'd come back and stuff like that. And I ended up working my way up to be a project manager for them, and I was running all the big projects that you see in and around the city centres. And it was great. I really enjoyed it. Leaving school with no real qualifications to speak about, to running huge 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 million pound brickwork and blockwork packages. And being part of teams that were delivering all the things, like I've worked on Man City's training ground, Coronation Street, loads of MOD work, schools, prisons. All
you were running all of them projects as well.
The brick and
some working on, but some.
So like those sort of projects, I was part of a team. Sometimes I'd run them on my own as a project manager, or be part of a team that were doing it, because at some points we might have had like 45, 50 bricklayers and labourers and machine drivers and all that sort of stuff within our package. Scaffolders and all that. We did a MOD base down in Stafford, where as a subcontractor we had over 100 people every single day out on that particular project, working underneath us. Never underneath us, with us, and so it was it was fun, and it was full on at times. But I loved it, absolutely loved it.
And was that like a proper sort of, is the bricklaying apprenticeship, is that like 4 years then?
3 years.
3 years, is it?
So I did 3 years. Did a couple of years outlaying bricks, and then sort of 2005-ish, I started doing a bit more work for myself. Like it started off from I'd do the odd garden wall, or repointing a chimney stack.
At weekends and stuff like that. Or at nights. And,
all that sort of stuff. So it evolved into, I ended up working for myself full time, and having a few lads working for us, 2 vans, and thinking, I'm doing great at this, when in reality it was really, really hard work. And then this was sort of around 2008. And then I eventually ended up folding the business in 2012 because of everything that went on with the recession. I managed to keep going through the recession, but there was loads of companies going bumpo in money. I was naive, if I'm honest with you, Jamie. There's like people took advantage of my naivety, and I can look back at that time and realise that now, and learn from those mistakes. And I've never got myself in that position again. And it was definitely a life lesson for me.
Would this just be because of things like you didn't maybe have like the same legal things in place, and like maybe like in terms of like no putting in valuations or something like that, and just thinking, they'll be fine, they'll pay me, but then they weren't paying you?
And it was simple things, like, well, not really simple things, but like not pricing jobs properly. Like understanding,
and they know, like that's probably quite a valid point. It's like that main contractor knows if you've priced it right or not, because they can look at all the other prices they've had in however many tenders, and they know you're going to be under pressure from the get go, but they're fine to just let you sign.
Exactly.
And get on with it.
I did one particular project by Man United's ground, and all it was like a substation for. There was new transformers going in there and bits and bats, so it had to be a brick and a block structure, because they have to have a certain Newton meter rating in case the transformers blow and all that sort of stuff. And we got to the end, and it only took us about 4 weeks to do the complete thing. Put the valuation, put the invoice in, and they went, right, if you want to get paid your full amount, we now work on the sliding scale. And so if you want the full value, you've got to wait 120 days for it before we'll even pay it. Whereas I'm only me and two other lads at that point. I'm
Yeah.
like, I've paid for all this. I've paid for all the materials. I've paid the wages and the insurances and all the cards that we have to have so we can work on projects like that. And then you turn around and saying to me, and absolutely, it probably would have been in the contracts at the beginning, but again, my naivety, not understanding things like that.
Even when you're no naive, to be honest with you, mate, you need professionals looking at them contracts. We had a guy, Yusuf, on the podcast just recently. The episode just came out not long ago, and he's called the contract coach. And that's what he does. He coaches trades business owners basically to set their own terms and look at these contracts, because like some of the horror stories that he was telling me as well, very similar to what you've just said there, it's brutal. And I know we're going to get into mental health here, but no wonder trades guys are having these mental health problems when that's the pressure that main contractors and people can put them under by just no paying.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not even just down to main contractors. The bigger side of commercial build, it can be doing an extension on somebody's house and just turning around and go, I'm not going to pay. I've had that done to me. Because there's people that know how to play the game where it's too big for a small claims court, but it's too small for the main court. So you're stuck in this no man's land. And you're like, how do we deal with this? And I've had to swallow loads of stuff like that.
Yeah, it's horrible.
And I did a particular project for one sort of small construction company. And it was on a train station in the Lake District, and it was a new ticket office that was being built. So we were in there to extend the opening for the ticket booth and a couple of knock-throughs and doorways and things like that. And when we priced the job, it showed on the drawings that it was 350 mil wall. In reality, it was more like 650 mil and stonework and rubble and everything else. So at that point, I was a bit wiser to all this sort of stuff, so I went back and revalued it, and they were fine with everything and made sure I had it all in writing, and there was a paper trail and everything to go with it. Did it all, got it all done. We did it because it was a bit like shop fit out. We had to turn it round, and we were working evenings and stuff. Got it done, and then put the invoice in, and the company went bust. So I didn't get paid a penny, so I was 13.5 grand out of pocket and stuff like that.
That's just not right,
But it's not all been bad. There's been some times where I've done jobs. I did. And
you actually got paid.
There was good times where we actually made really good money. There's one that sticks out in my mind where I did a petrol station forecourt. So there was this phase, I don't know, maybe about 2010-ish maybe, where all these petrol forecourts were shutting down and turning into hand car washes. And this one guy approached me because I had a bit of a unit, a lot like this one really, and he shared half of the unit downstairs at the back, and he was a petrol pump engineer. And he says, I've got somebody that wants to convert it, but they're struggling to find a contractor to do it. Can you do it? Went out, priced it. And I thought, this is going to be a nightmare to do this. I need special tools, non-spark, because of although the petrol tanks were empty, it's all saturated still and everything like that. So I went out, priced all this stuff, thought it'd take me ages to do it. And I said to the guy, it's like 25 grand to do it. And he accepted it. It's like, got all the terms and conditions sorted. When in reality, we did it in like 4 days, and I earned about 15 grand in 4 days. Wow. So you do get the small, you do get the wins.
And that is it. It's probably a bit of a gamble at times, and a bit of a sort of, you win some, you lose some, but it's no nice when you're losing, and usually like them wins are probably almost, they never probably cover all the losses, in that moment it's like, right, finally there's a bit of a win. And then, so what happened moving on then? So you were doing the bricklaying stuff, started up for yourself, had a couple of lads. Where did the podcast and that come into it? What's the sort of...
So on a timescale, so I started working for myself around about 2005 up to 2012. In that time, I was always popping back and doing work for the company that I worked for. And in 2012, I hung on as far as I could, and I actually went bankrupt. The company folded. A big builder's merchant wound me up. I had 3 or 4 days in court, appearances, trying to sort all that. And to be fair to the judge, she was really, really good to me. Because it was just me stood there on my own trying to deal with that, whereas this builder's merchant had the full legal team, and I was trying to fight that, and she could see I was only trying to do my best. But it got to like my 4th attempt of trying to roll it over, and she said, look, Rob, you clearly can't make this work. I'm really sorry. We're gonna have to bankrupt you. I mean, if I'm honest with you, Jamie, at the time I hated it, but it gave me a lot of life lessons, and it gave me, I guess, a bit of a fresh start.
Yeah.
And I went through so I had the terms of the bankruptcy, and I worked through all that. And in that time, I went back to my old boss, who I had a mega relationship with. And at the time, I was going through it all. He went, "How much do you need?" I'm like, "No, I don't need any money." I knew that period in my life was coming to an end, and the business needed to fold.
Yeah.
I tried to make it work. I hung on as much as I could, and he was like, "Well, what do you need from me?" I said, "Can I have a job, like a full-time job?"
Yeah.
So once I sorted out all the bankruptcy stuff, about a year later, he was like, "Right, come and work for me."
Yeah.
And he gave me a job back, and because in that period I had got qualifications to do managerial stuff and everything like that, he said, "Come back on as sort of a working supervisor." Worked my way up to be an assistant manager, and then a site manager, and then a project manager.
Yeah.
And then, like I said earlier on, that I was running these big projects. But what I ended up doing, all I was doing was just destroying myself for work.
Yeah.
Not because the company I was working for was bad. There's always pressure, like there always is.
Yeah.
But I have a huge problem with confidence. Never think I'm good enough. Struggle real bad with imposter syndrome or inner saboteur, whatever you want to call it. And I never ever thought I was good enough. So I ended up like overworking and overcompensating for where thought I was falling down and failing.
Yeah.
Obviously I wasn't, because I kept progressing, I kept getting promoted, and the projects kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But in reality, all I was doing was just turning myself inside out for work. And it was starting to have an effect on my family. I was really struggling at home. I was really struggling at work, but never ever told anybody.
Yeah.
Never said anything. Every day I used to turn up to work, go through that turnstile, put that mask on, and like lads or whoever was with, like, "All right, Rob, how you doing?" And I just said, "Yeah, I'm sound.
Yeah.
I'm all right. I can keep going." And there's only so long you can keep doing that for, and there's only so long you keep pretending you're all right. And then one day I was doing some student accommodation in Liverpool, and I just had a huge meltdown on site.
Yeah.
I'd been away for the weekend. And well, the meltdown actually happened over the weekend.
Right, okay.
I was due to go away for a long weekend, tons and tons of holiday, because I never took it. And we were out, and Seb, my eldest lad at the time, was just mithering me for pizza at lunchtime. Gave him the pizza at lunchtime, didn't want to eat it, and I just couldn't handle it. Blew up. So I had this meltdown, and I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't sit down, I just didn't know what to do with myself for the rest of that weekend. But my alarm went off at 4:30 on the Monday, dragged myself up and I went to work. And as I got to work, went through that turnstile. "All right, Rob, how was your weekend away?" And I was like, "Yeah, it was sound, you know." When in reality, I'd had a huge breakdown.
Yeah.
And that Monday morning, like, I got everybody working, did all my reports and everything that everybody needed from me. And once I knew everybody was safe, everybody's earning money, nobody needed from me, I went out to the car park. I actually had a pickup. I had a L200 pickup. Dropped the tailgate, and I just sat down on that tailgate and broke down because I couldn't do it anymore. And I rang my boss, told him what was going on, and he got me some help and support and sorted it out from there. And I came back to work, worked through it, and I was like, this has got to change. There's got to be a better way to do this. And for a while, I didn't know what to do and where to go with it. And I was still healing from it all. And then around about 2018, 2019, I started doing mental health first aid courses. And then the Lighthouse Club, who we can chat about after, they did a scheme called Building Mental Health. And part of that Building Mental Health is they collaborated with the CITB and got, I think it's about £500,000 worth of funding to train people within the industry about mental health and well-being. And I was one of those people that went through the course. So it started off with like an awareness course, and then it went to the 2-day mental health first aid course. And then I did an instructor course and trained the trainer, so I could go and train people how to deliver mental health first aid courses. And this was all sort of like 2019, and then obviously everything that happened in 2020 with all that sort of stuff. It all sort of came to an end, and I was working in Liverpool again on some more student accommodation. I've done so much.
This is all Liverpool's fault.
So I was working on some more student accommodation in Liverpool, and it was chucking it down one day. So all the lads had gone home, and I was catching up with a bit of paperwork. And I was sat there thinking, there's got to be a better way of doing this. There's got to be a better way of getting this message out there. And I thought my biggest problem was I wasn't talking about stuff.
Yeah.
I was internalising it, and I thought, why don't I start a podcast about mental health in construction? Because it's all about talking. It's all about getting it out there. And people could be sat watching the episode of whoever have got on with us, and they could be like, I feel just like that.
That's me.
That's me. That's exactly what I was thinking. That's me. And they have now come through the other side of it, and they're surviving. They're thriving rather than just surviving. And if they can do it, so can I.
Yeah.
And we absolutely don't need permission to have these conversations, but sometimes we don't realise that.
Yeah, it's true.
And if we can encourage people to start talking, and they can then go out and speak to others and see somebody that's on site and maybe see that they're struggling a little bit and have the chat with them, because we don't have to cure those people's problems with whatever's going on in their world, but we can be a safe air for them to listen. And
you can just let them get it out.
Exactly.
Get it out. I think like I've had a lot of sort of trades guys that sort of have worked for me, or like I know, and different things, and when they come to me for like mental health advice or anything like that, because I've had my own kind of journey with it, like I'll always try and say if you can get it out your head and on paper, that's a massive kind of first step. And then if you do that, like if it doesn't feel better at that point, like if you can speak it out, like a prime example of this was like I would say I'm in quite a good place at the moment, but the other week there, I'd had a really long busy day. It was a Monday, believe it or not, but it had been a really long busy day across all the businesses, lots going on. I'm training for this marathon at the moment, and I knew I had to get out and do my run that night, and I've sort of been putting it online, so I've been giving myself an extra bit of pressure and accountability to be like, I'm running this marathon, I will show up, this, do you know, and I was like, I need to get out and get this done again. And like I just text my mate saying, I'm struggling, bro. And see, as soon as I sent it, I just felt better.
Yeah.
And he was like, what with? And I think there was there was a couple of messages, and I just messaged him back. I was like, I'm out to run, I feel better now, but I'll tell you tomorrow, kind of thing. And he knows, like, that's my close friend, so he knows that would have been all right. And he was like, look, if you need to phone me, but if not, I'll speak to you tomorrow. And that's huge. And that was just a text by saying I'm struggling, and it's just almost, I just had to verbalise it.
Yeah.
Why do we hold that in?
Yeah, exactly. And I think sometimes when I'm talking to people, helping them, supporting them, it could be sat in their head and it can be whirring round.
Yeah.
And then as they start talking, it starts to make sense, and they'll answer their own questions a lot of times. They'll be like, oh, that's why I'm feeling like that, and that's what's made me. But sometimes, like when we're sat in an office space, sat in a machine, sat laying the bricks or knocking the nails in or up on a roof or whatever, we can be stuck and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But as soon as we start saying and having these chats and things like that, and also the people that we're talking to can give your head a bit of a wobble and say, come on, do you not realise this is why you're feeling like this, and you've got this going on, and sometimes... And
they can join the dots for you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's much easier to fix someone else's problems. That's maybe not the right saying, but it's much easier for you to speak your problem and me to go join the dots for you, whereas in your own head, like you said, it's spinning, it's messy, you just feel like your head's going to explode sometimes, but it's almost getting it out of there and either saying it or writing it down. I think it's just a massive way of pushing it away from you, and it almost feels like you can kind of dissociate from that to go, well, that's my problem, it's not actually me, but when it's in there, it's kind of stuck, and it is you because it's in your head. But like, why do you think is probably more so as men? I do think it is more men. Why do we hold that in? Is that just a pride thing, or?
Yeah, I think it's a pride thing, and we feel that we're like providers, and we can't be seen to be talking about this stuff because we could be scared that people could use it against us. Yeah. There's been people that have helped and supported in the past saying, I can't tell anybody this because if they find out about this, they're going to do this, this and this. Yeah. And they can hold it against me. And especially like business owners that help and support, because they're worried that somebody else that they're doing work for, or somebody that it could be competition to them, that they could see it as a sign of weakness. Yeah. When absolutely it's not, because like I've got a good example that I gave a talk on a site in Leeds, and I actually knew the project director on there because I'd done work with him in the past, in my previous role. And he said to me, he's like, how can you stand up here and talk to people and show vulnerability like that? Are they not going to use it against you? It doesn't make you a good leader. And I sort of flipped it on his head and I said to him, is it not a sign of a good leader that you can stand up and you can talk about this stuff and you can show that you are a human being?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you're no less of a leader to them. It just shows that you are a human being and we all have these things going on in our lives. But if we can show vulnerability and show that we have this going on, but still lead these people and still deliver these projects and still run businesses and everything like that, it makes it more of a strength than a weakness.
Yeah, I would say so. You would think it would give you more respect, actually.
Exactly, yeah.
And the way I always see it is like I've always had I've got like this almost burning desire to be authentic.
Yeah.
Like anytime I'm not being authentic, my mental health is like shot, to be honest. So like I've seen me just having like my main business, Taylor Roofs, that's sort of the bigger one. So they're about 35, sort of maybe closer actually on 40 staff in there. 25 guys or whatever on the tools, and then all the different roles. And I've seen me stand in front of all of them and just say, I'm struggling. And I've never really, like, it feels vulnerable in that moment, but I just think, like, I didn't need to say it, but I just felt like if I can tell them, then they might realise why I'm being a wee bit grumpy this week, or why I'm demanding this result, or not being my usual self. And it's like, it's almost like saying, like, this isn't an excuse or anything, guys, but this is who I am and this is what I'm how I'm feeling right now. And it also allows them to then be vulnerable. And there's a few guys on the team that probably do reach out to me for support and stuff, and they know 100% that that's the business and that's their personal life, and I've got this relationship with them here where it's like, speak about your mental health and stuff, and I'm not going to hold that against you and be like, well, we can't have you in the team now because you might take the odd day off because of your mental health or anything else. It's actually like, I think it's good to be able to give them that space and say, speak to me. There's been lots of, I didn't want to go into it too much because they're still my staff now and things like that, but there has been lots of examples where I've helped them open up and they just need to find their own way as well.
Yeah.
But sometimes just literally speaking it and actually giving them an example of some of the stories that I've had and with my mental health, then I think it just brings a guard down.
Yeah.
But it does go back up.
It
does go back up, that guard, and it just keeps happening. And it's, there's so much happening in this space just now, like you were saying, with, the podcasts and then like Lighthouse and stuff. And you can see people are really trying to drive it, but it's quite a big job. Yeah,
it's a huge job. I mean, as an industry, I think there's 3 million people that work within the construction sector in the UK.
Yeah.
And out of those 3 million people, I think 83% of it is male dominated. Yeah. And again, out of that, there's another, you can break it down again, that 80% of the industry is self-employed.
Yeah.
So whether you are working on the big sites like I used to work on, or you're just working on John and Leslie's extension down the road, there's huge pressures all the way along, and it's all relevant and things like that. And we as an industry find it very difficult to stand up and talk and say that, you know what, I am struggling with this.
Yeah.
Because people think, like we said before, that it's a sign of weakness and we don't want to do it. And it's a huge problem within the industry. It's massively changing.
Yeah.
Because I remember, like, when I first started in construction, that I used to go on building sites and the welfare facilities were rubbish, and you're either sat out on site eating your lunch or whatever, your hands are dirty, and then you go in if there was a canteen there, page 3 stuff on the wall and everything like that. And I think the industry realised, like, right, we need to change a little bit here. We need to bring the standards up. Yeah. And now the industry, like, you've only got to look at some of the projects that we work on, no matter the size of it, everybody's got good welfare facilities, and people are realising that. And gone are the days of hanging off scaffolding and wolf whistling and things like that. People have definitely changed their opinion on it. And I feel we're at that tipping point now with mental health and wellbeing. Yeah. Certainly in the past 3 to 5 years, that the industry are like, right, we may not be causing these problems, but we're certainly not helping it. And how can we help our staff within the industry to allow them to open up about this stuff and work through that, and show that if they do talk about it, they're not going to lose the job, and they're not going to be forced to go on light duties and things like that. And you're not going to be told to, right, sit at home for 3 months till you're all right, till you get signed off by the doctor. They'd be like, right, let's help you, let's support you. How can we work for you? Do we need to do things like flexi time? What's causing the stress? Why? Like I've been on projects where we've had drug and alcohol turn up, and I've had lads fail for drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And for a long time, it was very easy to say, right, you failed the drug and alcohol test, go.
Yeah.
Whereas I was one of the people that, and again, because I work for a really good company, we're trying to understand why. Why are they using the drugs? Why are you failing a breathalyzer at 3 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yeah.
I think there's obviously a reason for that. And
there's an addiction or there's something there which 9 times out of 10 relates back to some kind of trauma that they've not yet processed or dealt with properly and bottled up and internalised. So
100%.
It's all relatable in some way, but it's easy to just look at the very front of it and just say, you failed, you're out.
Exactly. And
then they'll just keep failing and keep being out.
Yeah, and you get stuck in this perpetual cycle of, well, I'll just go and get another job somewhere else.
Yeah. And the same thing will happen again.
Yeah.
Because the cycle's not really getting a chance to break down and be sorted.
Yeah, because we're already in... the industry's already got a huge skill shortage. And I think, is it 500,000 tradespeople a year that we're short of? And if you're just getting rid of people all the time, you've got to rehire them and you've got to try and get them to work to how you run your business, because they may have worked at a different roofing company and done it a certain way, but when they come working for yourself, you might have it a different way of working, different systems, and they've got to get used to that. And then there's all the payroll side of it and everything that goes along with it. Whereas if you can help and support that individual, then they can work through the problems. Like we said before, it might not be work. It may be a work-related thing, like they're stressing over things like that, but it may be something that's going on externally. And they need help and support with that. Whereas if you can give them that safe space to take the day off to go and sort the kid out or go to an appointment or anything like that, or whatever it may be, they are more likely to be more loyal to you, stick around. You'll get more of a return out of them as an individual, and it's just a better place for everybody to work in. And we can still absolutely have the banter and everything else that goes along with it. I think
the banter actually helps, to be honest. Like I've got one guy that who works for me, and we always bring it back to humour. Do you know? And it's like, so I kind of find a way to sort of bring the barrier down again. And then I remember I'm like, look, we're all right to connect at this level, and then I'll just add the humour in again. And I'll just be like, do you know? And if you can't, like, if you laugh at your problems, they definitely shrink. But it's like, but it can't be somebody finally opens up and then they just get slagged completely, and you know, like everybody's having a laugh, like no at all like that. But that banner helps. Like that's probably quite a big like positive in the construction industry. But there is probably a fine line as well.
Yeah, just absolutely.
Where you go with that, to be honest. But no, I think so you started the podcast and stuff, and you were getting that out there. What sort of happened if you were having your own sort of mental health wobbles, we'll maybe call them? Like, how did you sort of work your way through that? Because like we spoke a wee bit before we came on to record the episode, but like, how was that? If that imposter syndrome came back up, or these mental health challenges, like how did you get through that?
I think for a long time the podcast was quite cathartic to me, and it was very therapeutic. And I did an episode with somebody, and they flipped it on me and like, you do know this is your therapy, don't you? I was like, yeah, you know what, I've never thought about it that way. And for a while it was good, and like I said, for like 3 years, every single month I get an episode out, and it was going good. Then I've had a bit of stuff going on in my personal life, and I've had to deal with that, and I've taken a step back from it, and I've realised that I need to put my own needs first, and something had to give. So still have to go out and work and provide for the family and things like that. But I thought, right, I'll take a step back from the podcast, because I'm not going to do it justice. I don't want somebody to come on and have quite a deep and meaningful conversation with myself, and then I'm just rushing the process. And I'm just like, I need to get it out because I've got to get it out.
That makes sense.
I'd rather take a step back, allow myself to heal. Do you know what the biggest thing for me, Jamie, is? I've allowed myself to feel my feelings, and I know that sounds daft.
No, I get it.
But for a long time, I'd block it out.
Yeah, we all do that.
And just keep going. I can keep going. I'm all right. I can keep going. And I think for a while that I had to realise that, no, I need to feel this emotion. And I need to work through it, and instead of ignoring it. And I did that sort of September last year. I'm like, right, I'm feeling like this and I need to do something about it. And I went back and I did 11 sessions of therapy.
Yeah.
And I worked through that, and I've been getting support through that. And then sort of maybe about, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago, I thought, right, I'm feeling good again. I'll try again. And tried it again, started recorded an episode, and I was like, no, I can't do this. I'm not quite right.
Yeah.
So press pause on that, which I've now released that episode and it's gone out. But
Yeah.
I knew I had to take a step back.
Yeah.
Whereas before I would go, no, shake it off. I can keep going. Whereas I was like, no, I'm not quite ready.
It's good because you're sort of like you're learning more and more about yourself then, and you're actually being kind to yourself, and then you can share this with others as well and say, if you need to stop something, like just stop it.
Yeah.
Like that's one thing that we're really good at is like just keeping going.
Yeah.
Like we're just amazing at just keeping on going, but that's only okay until it just all overspills and kind of explodes. And it's, is there any, what would your sort of advice be? Like I'm just trying to think of, say, just use my business as an example, the main roofing business. So 25 guys there, like what should they be doing on a week-to-week basis that could help that? Is there like, would you, like, they're probably not going to have like a mental health club, but they could, or would it be like a once a month thing, or like should there be, is there something that could be done that?
I think it's a very individual thing. And like you may be able to put up with something that I can't put up with, and vice versa. And giving people the flexibility to maybe take a breather or take thing and maybe go and do some group stuff, whether that be like the old team building stuff that we used to do, and try and change it rather than going out for a meal and go and doing drinking, which we can do, but you could go and do and maybe help them understand and teach them to go and work as a team together.
I think that can add a bit of fuel to the fire, the alcohol and the drugs, and it's quite big in the construction industry. And I think for me, from my own mental health journey, like I kept finding myself in these kind of pits of despair, like probably in the earlier days when I was spinning a lot more plates and didn't really have like a management team in or anything like that. But like I would be drinking as well, and then I was taking drugs too, and you know, it was like, although in the front of it I was like fairly successful really, you know, I had my own business, I had a wife, I had my kids there, you know, like I had the business, but it was just when I was drinking and doing that, like I was just having these like real sort of come downs, and it was all becoming too much. And it wasn't until I really looked at it and went, well, how are you going to do all of that stuff that you're doing as well as like trying to deal with a hangover or a come down or whatever you want to call it? And I think like sometimes until you actually just face that like head on and go, it's maybe like start there. A lot of people just want to push it away. No, it's no my drinking. Like I didn't drink that much, or no, I'm not taking drugs or that, or do you know, or it's well, everybody just takes a bit of cocaine on a night out because that's just normal, and all of them doing it, so I'll be fine as well. And it's like, are you fine though? Is the feedback you're getting that, like, how are you feeling on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Like, are you actually okay, or like are you feeling like on the brink of being a bit suicidal or like stuck inside your own head, however bad or no so bad it gets? And it's just like feedback's a real mechanism for that. And I just think that it's easy to just kind of push away those things and go, no, it's that. Do you know, like for example, it's my marriage, or it's my work, or it's the kids. Do you know your story with your boy with the pizza? Do you know it wasn't him? It was everything else. But you're like, just eat the pizza. Do you know? And it's like, but we push them away because they're the hard things to deal with. But that's probably big. Another one, it might be the traumas and stuff. Like, you know, the more and more that I've kind of spoke to people around mental health, it's 9 times out of 10 there's some kind of trauma somewhere that is underlying that they've just not dealt with. But we just go, no, it's my work, or it's this, and do you know, like I think there's probably a real bravery in facing, because we all know what it is. I think, does that make sense? Like, see if it's alcohol, we know it's alcohol, but we're like, we kind of lie to ourselves and we're like, nah, it's not the alcohol, it's this other thing. And we pick like another problem that is maybe one that you maybe can't change. So like the reason I'm using the work as an example there, it's like, well, I'll never be able to quit my job or just give up, and like, or I'll know, like if I win the lottery and I go to the Bahamas, it would all be fine, but I can't, like, but do you know this problem here? Alcohol, drugs, or whatever, that can be fixed, but it's also really, really hard, but it is achievable. So I don't know if we just tuck it away because we're like...
I think sometimes it's like socially acceptable to say, you know what, I'm stressed out about work. I'm stressed out about kids. I'm stressed out about whatever. Rather than saying, you know what, I think I've got a problem with drugs.
Yeah.
I think I've got a problem with alcohol.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be seen to be admitting something that socially isn't seen to be acceptable. Well, why are you taking the drugs? Whereas nowadays, I think I'd say to people, okay, so you feel like you've got a problem with drugs and alcohol. Why? What's making you do that? So when you get a certain feeling, when you get a craving to take the drugs, when you get a craving to get a drink, what's giving you that craving? And I try and say to people, try and work backwards a bit. So when was the last time you felt good and you didn't feel like you need that? So whether it be 3 weeks ago, whether it be 20 minutes ago, what's changing that time between then and now? Why do you feel like you need to take whatever substance or do whatever you need to do? And I think like when I was walking over here today to do this recording, myself and Sam were having a chat, and we were talking about socially acceptable self-harm.
Right.
And what I mean by that is when people think about self-harm is they think about cutting themselves and stuff like that. Whereas nobody would think about working 120 hours is self-harm, or drinking a little bit too much, or taking too many drugs is too much, or even over-exercising. And pushing themselves too hard. Like I recorded a podcast on Tuesday with a guy called Ben, and he was saying that he went through a period of his life where, because he's a marathon runner, or ultra marathon runner, and he said that he was running that hard doing these ultra marathons that he'd be physically throwing up as he's doing it. Whereas he didn't need to push himself that hard, but he felt like he needed to make himself suffer to make himself feel better for what he was going through. And I think we can definitely do that with drugs, alcohol, work. Like with me, I've never done drugs and things like that. Well, I've been around people that have done it, but it was never my thing. I think one of the key factors behind it is that I was one of the first out of my mates to be able to drive when we were younger. So I used to be the driver, and we used to be in mad raves in these big old mansions in like Bury and Manchester and all around there. They used to be off the nut and stuff, and I used to think, why do you want to get like that? But what I used to do, I think, is I used to bury myself into work. Because I felt like I was failing, whereas because we do a physical job, you can go to work and, for me, lay the bricks and stuff like that, and I can go home at the end of the day, see that we've laid that amount of bricks, and I feel like I've achieved something. So it's trying to pacify that feeling that I have inside me. Some people might use exercise, some people might use drugs, some people might use alcohol. Whereas when I had the first breakdown, I had to understand and work through, right, why do I feel like I have to push myself that hard? That I feel like I've got to turn myself inside out. A lot of it for me was coming down to not feeling good enough, and I was failing and things like that. And I had to put a lot of hard work into turning it around. And like people say to me, especially when I do the talks and sites, like, I'm where you were 5 or 6 years ago, what did you do? And I'm like, if I'm honest with you, I had to brutally pull my own socks up, have a strong word with myself, and turn those thoughts around. So as much as they're a negative, my mind was taking me down these negative paths. I knew I had to replace those negative thoughts with positive thoughts. And people might be sat here listening to this and going, yeah, but it's all right for you, you've done it. I'm like, yeah, absolutely, I've done it. But I had to put the work in. And I went through therapy, and the therapist helped me understand this and work through it. And it was like a switch in my own head. And I realised that, right, when I'm starting to feel like rubbish and failing and not good enough and no self-esteem and everything like that, I'm realising that I'm booking more and more and more work in, over-promising, underachieving, and then that feeds into that cycle of I'm failing because that job's not finished on time and everything like that. Whereas I learned to put boundaries in for myself, and they'd be like, absolutely, I can do this project for you, or I can do this bricklaying for you, but I can't do it at the moment. I've got this, this and this. Can we look at doing it at this date? Okay, that doesn't work for you. I'm really sorry I can't help you with this one, but please remember me in the future. Whereas instead of saying, oh, Jamie's got a great roofing company, but he never turns up when he's meant to. He's always overbooked, and he's here for a day and then he's not, and all those things that I'm sure we've all done over the years. And because if you turn around to somebody and go, yeah, we can do it at that date for that money, and in the back of your mind you're thinking, I've got work booked in for that already, and I don't think that's achievable for that
Yeah.
money. You're already putting stress on yourself.
Self-sabotaging in that very moment, aren't you?
Yeah, and you're thinking, how the hell am I going to deliver this with everything else that I've got going on? So, and again, it becomes that perpetual cycle of stress and anxiety.
So I'm hearing a bit there. It's like, and I feel very similar in what you said. Like I've been to therapy, like on a few occasions actually, and I'm probably not someone who believes in going to therapy and staying in therapy forever. But I believe that if you think you need it, then go in and do what you think you need, and then you start to feel better. It might be come away from it. That's probably what I did, and then went back again, and then came away again. And I probably wouldn't have any shame in going back if I felt I really needed to. But there is just this part where it's like it's all going to boil down to like it is on you.
Yeah.
And that's probably quite overwhelming as well. But it's like you are just going to need to do the work.
Yeah.
And it's probably not what people want to hear either, is it?
No.
Especially when you're really struggling and it's like you're going to need to sort this out.
Yeah.
Way.
I think the good thing.
There is support. There's lots of things here, but you're going to need to be really super courageous and change what your old model of thinking courage is, which is I'll bottle this all up, I'll keep it to myself, I'm a strong man, I provide, and like I work hard and I do all the hours under the sun and I'm going to hold this all together, to the new model, which is I'm going to open up, I'm going to share how I feel, I'm still going to lead, I'm still going to feed my family, I'm still going to provide, but I'm going to set boundaries. I'm going to tell people my true feelings, because if I do that, I'm going to be a better version of myself rather than this one that it becomes a bottleneck and then it just explodes in some way. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And a good way of thinking about it is like, so when you very first started as a roofer, and you looked at the people that you were working with and doing your apprenticeship with, and you were doing roofs, did you ever think that, oh God, I'm never going to be able to build a roof, and like these buildings that we're in now, and you think, how the hell am I going to do a roof like that?
100%.
Whereas now you think, well, it's easy. You just do this, and this, and that.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same with your mental health.
Yeah,
it might feel hugely overwhelming, but don't forget that. Don't beat yourself up about this stuff, because you can't punish yourself for things you don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you are willing to put the time and effort in, just like you did with your apprenticeship, whatever the trade is, putting the time and effort in and learning and getting encouragement of other people, surrounding yourself with the right people, you got that knowledge how to do the roofs, and you got that knowledge how to lay the bricks and everything else that came along with it. And they're exactly the same with your mental health and well-being. And I think a lot of people don't realise that mental health and physical health go hand in hand.
Yeah.
If you're in a good place and your mental health is balanced and you're feeling good about yourself, your physical health is generally the same.
Yeah.
Whereas I used to ignore the signs all the time. Like if I was struggling a little bit and pushing it away and putting it down and ignoring it, my body would be screaming at me.
Yeah.
I'd get cold sores. I'd be ill all the time. Like I was pretty lucky that I never really struggled with my hands splitting off the mortar and things like that. But all my fingers would be peeling and stuff like that. It's my body screaming at me saying...
Mouth ulcers and things that just show up, or like the sore throat that's just not gone away for weeks on end.
Exactly, It's your body screaming at you to say.
Makes a lot of sense. What would be your number one bit of advice to someone who's struggling with their mental health right now, listening?
Be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Don't beat yourself up as much. You might feel that you're in the deep, dark hole and there's no way out, but there's always a way out. You've got to allow yourself to heal.
Yeah.
You've got to allow yourself to build yourself back up. And there's going to be times where it'll drop. But when you're in another low period, that allows you to appreciate when you're climbing back up, and you can feel better within yourself and appreciate the small things in life, because we live in a society of instant gratification now, whether that be social media or whether that be work, and perceived to have the nice car and the big house and everything like that. But it takes time to get to that point. Patience is another big thing. It ain't going to happen overnight to get better, and it didn't happen overnight to get to your low point. It's exactly the same to get yourself out of that. And learning to understand what works for you. Everybody's different. Everybody has different needs. I could talk a lot about suicide within my talk. I never got suicidal. Never entered my head. But that doesn't mean my problems are any more or any less than somebody who does have suicidal thoughts and does have things like that, and vice versa. If you're sat there thinking, well, I don't really feel suicidal. I don't feel this. I don't feel that. So my problems aren't as bad as that individual down there that is feeling suicidal and has got all that. We're all individual. We all have individual needs. And if you need that help and support, reach out and get it.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense, mate. It really does. Because it's one of them things where it's the hardest thing, but also the easiest thing to just keep it in. It's just like it's just such a fine line where you're like, it's so vulnerable and so like, there's just so much comes up where you like to just admit that feeling of I'm just not quite right. It's just
once you do start to admit and you do get over that hurdle of not talking about it, once you release that, it gets easier.
I like the way that you said like be kind to yourself, because so for my mental health kind of battles, a big part of it is it did show up in my physical. So like I put a lot of weight on. I would eat a lot of junk foods and stuff. So like although I'd cut alcohol and drugs entirely out of my life, like my go-to was like binge eating, and I'm talking like binge eating. Do you know, like rolls through the snack vans in the morning, Greg's for lunch, Chinese or chip shop for dinner, like almost every day. And I just put so much weight on and became like really obese. Was up over 21 stone.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm like under 14 stone now. So like I've stripped 7 stone back off again. And I've done this twice, and both times kind of relates to like mental health breakdowns, to be honest. So, but what I noticed with that is I was being really, really nasty to myself. So when I looked in the mirror, I would be like, you're fat so-and-so, or, look at the state of you, and like, who's going to want to listen to you when you look like that? Or even when I like first started this podcast, I was coming out of it, but I was still in it, if that makes sense. So although my mindset was starting to change and I was trying to do something about my health, you did, like you said, it's patience. It doesn't happen overnight. So I couldn't just lose the weight again and be all right, or fix the mental health in one go. So, it was quite painful to be like watching maybe those episodes back or listening to them back and looking at myself and going, look at this size here, and like what but then I did just, like you said, I just turned those thoughts around, and I started saying, like I started trying to love myself a wee bit. And that does sound even vulnerable saying it right now, but I was looking at myself in the mirror and I was like, you're a good guy and you're doing the best you can possibly do. Now you're that size now, but you can change that. And I just started to slowly but surely get a wee bit kinder to myself. And as I was getting kinder, the more the weight started to come off, and the more I would eat a bit healthier, and it started, like the dots started to join, and then I was building this vision of myself in the future being over it all again and have the weight off. And the more I was being kinder to myself and no beating myself up for where I was right now and focusing more on where I was going to be, it just started to become easier, and then the momentum started to gather. And again, I'm here, I've lost all that weight again. I'm probably in like my peak condition, I would say. I'm training for a marathon at the moment. But one thing I'm just mindful of is I just can't get complacent, because I have done this before. So, I've been posting quite a lot online, and LinkedIn's probably one of my main platforms. And believe it or not, that's the first place I went and put a video when back in 2018, I went through a real sort of mental health struggle. And that's the first place that I put a video, which seems quite bizarre, because like LinkedIn seems such a professional platform, and it was worse back then. And, like, it's eased off a bit now, but I was just climbing a mountain saying my mental health is shot. I've lost my mate to suicide. I'm looking for some help, basically. It was such a, like, looking back on that video to where I am now is such a journey. But I just think when I put, so the reason I was speaking about the LinkedIn there was, I'm posting on there saying I'm running the marathon, I'm doing this, and everybody's, oh, well done, that's great, you're doing amazing. And I just can't quite accept it, because I'm like, you can't have one good year and just think, right, that's it. It's like, you've got to look after your mental health forever now. You've got to look after your diet and your physical and like your work-life balance. All it needs to be looked after forever. So
it's a journey. It's not like if you break your leg, you go to the doctor or the hospital, you get it in a cast for 6-8 weeks, whatever it is, and then you might have a bit of physiotherapy, and say 12-15 weeks later down the road, you're pretty much back to where you were. But I think with your mental health, it's a lifestyle, it's a journey. You're recognising that, right, these things set me off that, and I know I can go down this route, and I know I can get to this point, and I need to stop that, and I need to understand that I need to put all these boundaries in and these routines in my life to help me stop myself getting to that point again.
Yep.
And I think like you said a minute ago about learning to love yourself, but I think it's really important that you need to do that, because if you can't love yourself, how can you love others?
You know, we're like grinning at each other because we
Yeah.
know it's just there's
Yeah,
such a stigma. You know,
yeah.
it's like you imagine going down and facing them 25 roofers and being like, we just all need to love ourselves.
Yeah, yeah.
Guys, they're just going to be like, boo.
It probably won't be as nice as that.
Do you know what? No, exactly.
This is it. It's like, and now I'll do these talks that I do out on sites, and there could be, depending on the project, there could be 5 people there, or there could be 400, 500, 600 people in front of me. And I'll stand there and I'll know that there'll be a percentage of this crowd that will be stood there thinking, shut up, I don't care what you're saying. How can you talk about this stuff? You're weak, and everything else that goes along with it. Whereas I know there'll be people in that audience that'll be listening going, I need this. And if he can do it, I can do it. And it just encourages people. And a big thing for me is that a big thing I learned was that other people's opinions don't pay my bills. Yeah. And not that I don't care what people think. I don't, if like I've been heckled and all sorts doing these talks and everything you can imagine. Oh yeah, I've had some brutal ones. Oh man. And like, it makes me laugh because they think they can get me off the stage, but I'm used to running big teams of bricklayers, so I've heard it all before, and I've been there and done that and worn the badge and everything like that. But at the same time, they're probably the people that are deflecting, that need the help the most and don't want to hear it. It goes back to what we spoke about before, that people admit that something's going on with work and the stress we work, but they might not want to hear that sort of stuff. And that's why
they're touching a nerve with some people in that moment, and that's they'll probably shout there, but they'll actually go away and possibly think about it later.
Yeah, and that's exactly, again, the work that I do now. It plants the seed with people to allow them to go away, think about this. So there'll be people that will watch this episode now, and I can guarantee they'll be sat there thinking, you know what, they're ringing a few bells for me here. Maybe I need to do something about it. Or they'll be driving or doing the work, and it'll pop back in the thought process and think, actually, I do need to do something about this.
No, that's amazing. And what's next for you then, mate? You're doing this full time now? Yeah,
pretty much.
You're no longer a bricklayer?
No longer laying bricks. If I'm honest with you, if I never lay a brick again, I'll be pretty happy, but sometimes we've got to do it. I've got to break the rust off all my tools when I go out and do it now. But I'm doing the talks for the Lighthouse Club. I'm obviously up here in Scotland now this week for Scott Plant. I'll be on the stall there on the Molson Group stand, displaying with the van and everything like that. And then I'm over in North Wales next week, and then I'm in Ireland the week after. Then I'm in London for UK Construction Weeks. So I'm here, there and everywhere. I'm back to recording episodes now and getting episodes in the bag. So I've got more to come out. I would like to put more episodes out every month, but I don't have the time. And again, it's realising, setting a boundary, don't overstretch myself. Overstretch myself.
Can't be starting a mental health podcast and trying to help people and then screwing your own mental health.
Exactly,
it kind of goes against the grain of what you're trying to do.
This is it, and it's learning to work at the pace that works for me.
Yeah, brilliant. Anything we didn't cover that you'd like to say?
If people are struggling, or if there's anything we spoke about in this episode, please reach out for help and support. You can speak to the helpline to do with the Lighthouse 24 hours a day. You can ring 0345 605 1956. There are people there 24 hours a day that want to listen to what you've got going on in your life. They've heard it all before. They're not going to judge you over it. All they'll say is, right, no problem, let's make a plan and let's move forward. And it doesn't matter how deep or how dark the problem is, it always gets better. And you absolutely don't have to be in crisis to use the services either. The Lighthouse can help you retrain like they did with me. Not only have they helped me with therapeutic support, they've helped me retrain. And they've helped me reevaluate things in my life. They have life coaches that work for them that you might just need a bit of direction in your life, and they can absolutely
help. Life's hard.
Yeah, it is.
Life's hard, mate.
Exactly. Yeah, life's hard. It's not easy. And people say to me all the time, "Oh, you're turning everybody into a snowflake." I'm like, I'm absolutely not. I'm trying to help people have resilience and build resilience to get through life, because life will throw you some crappy cards sometimes, and you've got to work through that. And if you're in a good place and you can work through that time, you'll start to realise that you are thriving at life. Amazing, Rob. Thanks for coming on, mate, and sharing so openly as well. And I look forward to just keeping in touch with you, to be honest, and seeing how the journey continues. And for anybody watching or listening to the episode, please go and check Rob's podcast out, get him online as well, and get more of this content into your ears. Thanks very much. Thanks a lot for having us. Top man, mate. Cheers. That was good. Enjoyed it.